Hello and welcome to another episode of Circular Insights. My name is Lijin Chin and I am your host today for the podcast. I'm very happy to be joined with me in today's episode with Sir Kennedy Michael, who is the founder and director of Community Action Nexus Berhad, that actually provides consultation services and training programs for ESG, biodiversity, and ecosystem restoration, education for sustainable development, and citizen STEAM for SDGs, SDGs being the Sustainable Development Goals. Kennedy is also the founder of the Alliance of River 3, a convener of the Malaysian CSO SDG Alliance, former adjunct professor and current member of the Industry Advisory Panel for UCSI University in Malaysia, as well as the co-founder of the Capoeira Collective Malaysia and founder of the Afro-Brazilian Collective in Malaysia. Now, Kennedy actually is also the winner of the Star Golden Hearts Awards in 2020 and the Game Changing Place Diamond Award winner in 2023. Now, this is the Game Changing Place Diamond Award is actually given by the Malaysian Institute of Planners for this placemaking, and it's the highest placemaking award in the country. And the category was actually created specifically to be an exemplar of what placemaking is. Now, for those of you not familiar with placemaking, don't worry. We have this whole episode where Kennedy can potentially give us a bit more clarity in terms of what that includes. But this actually is all these different awards has been built on the unique creation by Kennedy in terms of his self-awareness program called GREduAction. It's a sort of short form for Gotong Royong Education by Action, which is a learning by doing methodology for river ecosystem restoration that leads its participants to higher awareness and eventually self-awakening. Now, personally, I admire how Kennedy has applied all of himself, including his creative aspects, to his interest in the work that he does. So, welcome, Kennedy, to our podcast today.
Thank you, Lijin. It's an honor and a pleasure to be here and to talk about whatever you like to talk about.
Well, we have a number of questions for you already, but probably I'll start off first with this first one. What is it that the pain that you actually are solving? Because you came up with this new self-awareness program. You've been doing placemaking. For a lot of our listeners, these may be a bit so foreign to them. But and how is it even related to this whole sustainability, ESG, climate the conversation that we're having?
Okay, I'm going to try and be succinct because there's actually quite a lot to talk about. So, as I was saying to you earlier, that where most people are not even aware, I would put it 99.99% of people are not aware of the pain that we're solving.
Mm,
Um, and if we want to make it grandiose, then we say we're safeguarding our raw water source. So upwards of 98%, some say 97, some say 83. The stats vary based on the context of our raw water in Malaysia, or at least the peninsular Malaysia is sourced directly from rivers. So this does two things. This makes the availability of water steady, and it also makes water cheap, raw water cheap, which reduces the cost of providing potable or treated water for all areas of life. But that also presents another challenge because uh, you can't guard all the rivers. There may be like, I don't know, 2,000, 3,000 kilometers of rivers just in the state of Selangor alone. Um, from small streams to slightly larger tributaries, riverines that flow into the river basin. So for Selangor, KL, and Putrajaya, it's the Klang River Basin. Of course, there's also the Sungai Selangor River Basin, which is the catchment. And so it means that because we have so many rivers and such a length, it makes it impossible financially or economically to protect these rivers. So it's a gamble, right? It's like putting a little kitten on the road with no leash and hoping that no one runs over it. Uh, and I use this analogy because people resonate with the idea of something innocent and fragile, like a kitten, in a harsh environment, where it's so easy to hurt it or kill it without even thinking or without even being aware that you would be doing something like that.
Mm.
So, um, so now the pain is that in the era of climate change, this water resource is at risk. So it's in an urbanized environment, which means the impacts on the river are slightly different from what you would get in a forest river or a wild river. Mainly, it would be household sullage, trade sullage, industrial sullage, um, surface runoff from roads and streets that already have so many contaminants, as well as turbidity from development projects. So all the mud from land clearing for development gets washed into stormwater drains. And if you're following the news, yesterday and the day before we had a lot of rains and there was a collapse, a little landslide at one of the construction sites in TTDI, which resulted in flooding in lots of different areas. And people still don't see the connection, how it happens in a river basin. So it's not isolated. What happens in one place happens in another place. So all these are challenges. In the first 3 months of this year, we had no rain. When I say no rain, I mean significant rain. And so in Selangor, we have water reserves that can last us 6 months without rain. So thankfully, it started raining again. But these never used to happen, So the extremes of too much rain causing flooding and damage and loss of life and disruption to economic systems and health. And then the other one where you are short of water. And this becomes even more critical because Selangor, as the economic generator for Peninsular Malaysia, I think all of Malaysia, is uh, is soliciting, is the word, uh, FDIs, or foreign direct investments into the data sector. So data centers are popping up, and we all know that data centers require a lot of water. And so add the population growth to the mix, and now we have a serious challenge. In fact, the World Bank a couple of months ago said that we would face water bankruptcy. That's interesting, right? For a rain-rich country to face water bankruptcy, and then at the same time have flooding. So the irony of it. And so, but rivers are not standalone features in a landscape or topography. That's why we say river ecosystem. So the ecosystem, you can't separate water from forest. You can't separate water from ambient temperature and air quality. And because we're in an urbanized area, the ecosystem now involves people and buildings and commercial centers and residential centers. And as we develop more and more, and as there are less and less permeable surfaces in this river basin, we're going to have more fresh water, meaning rainfall, flow, create floods, um, not be stored in groundwater, and escape into the ocean. So you can't capture all this fresh water, which means you have to have a lot of storage. So there's a whole science and engineering behind it, which we can unpack if we have time. But the simple thing is that the first place that you store water is in the ground. And that's how forests can maintain themselves without rain for long periods of time because there's a balance in the ground, where there's a water table, and plants know how to conserve.
Mm,
There is a super intelligence going on. And when you cannot store water in the ground, what happens is that the existing water dries up, and then you start to have pockets of air. And like what happened in Indonesia, you start to get subsidence. 2 years ago, I think there was a case in the city center where the ground suddenly gave way under the weight of this tourist from India, and she got sucked into the ground, and they never found her body. And everybody was talking about they were talking about poorly maintained roads and this and that, without realizing that that wasn't it at all. That wasn't it
mm,
at all. What it is that water is not finding its usual ways of coming out, and so they're underground rivers. And if you look at all the videos of that incident, you can see water flowing at an insane rate underground. And it's
mm,
not flowing through tubes or pipes or whatever. It's just, tunnels in the ground. And Kuala Lumpur has a huge karst base, limestone, which forms the bedrock, and that's easily washed away. And so these things never used to happen. Funnily enough, I was born in 1971 when the Great Flood happened in February in Kuala Lumpur. Um, and then from then on, it didn't get better, And to me, that was a turning point because what was happening was development, physical infrastructure development was starting to ramp up. And so it just got progressively worse over the decades. And, 55 years later, here we are, having these challenges. Um, and most people are not aware of the connection between rivers and their water source, and how fragile and how easily threatened it is. They're not aware of the relationship between the channel, the water body, and the ecosystem and the upstream forest. So I live at the upstream where the river starts, and it's connected to this huge swath of forest, like multiple forest reserves, water catchment forest reserve, and even that's being threatened. And so um, if we don't become aware and we continue our behavior, then we're setting ourselves up for a very dangerous and challenging future. And the fix is really quite simple. You can't directly fix the climate because it's a global thing, although there are regional climate systems and weather systems and hemispherical phenomena like La Nina and El Nino. Um, but the oceans are also warming up. There was a report that came out that says the oceans are now copying 18 times more the heat than 100 years ago. And the oceans are the major drivers of the global climate and global weather through the uh, through the currents that get carried around the world, moving warm high pressure systems and cold low pressure systems, then in turn affect the atmospheric balance and pressure and moisture, and then resulting in massive thunderstorms that like we've never seen before in Malaysia and in other places. New Zealand got hit by floods, I think last week, the week before. So these things are not normal. And so if you ask me what pain am I solving, it's the
mm.
whole thing.
Yeah.
Um,
So if
from from
I Yeah, if I hear you correctly, Kennedy, that the one of the first pains is that there is this disconnection between our understanding of our need actually of water. We understand when we are faced with a flood. We understand when our pipes go dry, or we understand when the water company or the water treatment company says, prices need to go up. Yeah. And yet there's this disconnect in terms of understanding what's happening to the sources of this raw water that can enable us to have these type of experiences in a complete different way, right? So if I hear correctly, um, one of the major pains that you're solving is actually that disconnect so that people can actually not only come to the realization of how fragile it is, but actually feel empowered to do something about it, even though these are huge climate systems, weather patterns that maybe we have no control of. Maybe it's a city development that we have no control of as individuals, and yet we are subject to whether or not that water quality, that water availability, that water security into the years coming ahead is going to be there. So does that sort of like pull it together, as that's the one of the main pains that you saw?
Yes, it does, but at a very high level.
Mm,
There's the very local, personal level, which
mm,
is if you live near a river, if the river is polluted, it stinks. So living with that smell's not fun. If it's turbid all the time, then it's unpleasant to look at. Also, it reduces the ability of the river to do climate control, which is to absorb heat. The clearer the water, the faster it can heat up, and so the faster it can absorb ambient heat. And the more turbid it is, the slower it does that. Um, and then to maintain the forest, you need water and you need the biodiversity that goes with that ecosystem. So everything from worms to centipedes to butterflies, to dragonflies, to squirrels, and all the life in there. That's what maintains the forest. So water is the base element. You have enough water and it's in balance, then all these other entities can do their part, and that keeps the forest intact. And an intact forest can draw water from the atmosphere because as they put out oxygen, it cools the air above the forest. And that's why you will rarely find dams in places where there are no trees. Usually there's a huge forest around it, which fulfills a function. So this is a form of bioengineering
mm,
to make sure that water falls within the catchment, doesn't fall directly into the body of the dam, but usually it's in a hilly area, and so it falls in the forest and then flows into the catchment.
yeah.
And so these are the other things that people don't realize. And then the other problem is that if you're trying to keep the entire river clean, so in this instance, 120 kilometers from where I live, the river starts, it goes all the way down to Klang, and then exits into the Straits of Malacca.
The
Um,
sea.
yes, and if there's a lot of turbidity, then there's subsidence, which means all the mud that's floating in the water settles, and it makes the river shallower. So what is called the carrying capacity of the river is reduced. And so when there's a lot of rain, so intense precipitation, a huge volume of water in a very short period of time, the basin fills up and then it spills out. That's how you get flash flooding.
Mm,
And if it's exacerbated when you have uh, solid waste or rubbish that blocks the flow of the river, that makes it even worse. And then it impacts also the benthic and aquatic life. So benthic life are all the small things like snails and shrimp and crabs and stuff that lives in the river ecosystem in the bed. And then the aquatic life, the fish and everything, they also get affected because for the fish, mud is like smoke. It
mm,
suffocates them because mud gets into the gills and they can't breathe. And then for the benthic life, they get covered by mud, and so they die, and so that slowly kills the river ecosystem.
mm.
So people are not aware of these challenges and how much the river does. Like, we estimate that if we cut off the river at source, temperature in Kuala Lumpur would go up between 5 and 10 degrees.
Wow. So you're talking about raising it from already quite hot, about like 32, 35 degrees up to like 40 degrees Celsius.
40, 45. In February, March, we deployed this trail cameras which have temperature sensors on them. And I put one on a metal pole, and it registered 49 degrees Celsius. I think that was because the pole was catching a lot of heat, but all the other cameras that were on trees and stuff were hitting 39, 38, and this was under shade.
Mm,
And it was hot. It was very hot.
mm. And under those conditions, there's a lot of various activities, human life activities, even economic activities that would be disrupted.
Right. Plus, there's a risk to health, especially for seniors. And where I live, it has an aging population, so about 40% of people who live here are seniors. So they are at risk, which means they stay indoors and use the air conditioning, which puts out more heat into the environment, and so it becomes this vicious loop.
Yeah, I like how you describe, initially even how the river is not a standalone on its own. Both in terms of the impact that it creates for its surroundings in temperature, in the flooding, as well as, of course, the various economic and human activities that we do around it, but also how it is very much dependent as well on these other parts of the puzzle, if you like. So there's the forest part of it, to actually allow that water to go to that area. So you're attracting the water to the basin, but also in terms of what is necessary to slow down that flow of fresh water from just getting into, the sea as fast as possible, because there's going to be extended periods where fresh water is going to become more scarce. And at the same time, the pressure on the use of this fresh water is increasing because we just have more usage for it, not only in terms of population increasing, but also in the type of economic activities that I would say a lot of our future economy depends on, which is the digitalization world. That's why data centers are becoming so popular and necessary for our societies and economies to work. So in terms of this solution that you've put forward through that graduation process, because you mentioned at the start, it's so hard to actually guard every river. Like I said, it's a huge river. It's quite long, all the way from the source down to the sea. And there's so many different parties that get involved in that river, whether directly or indirectly, consciously or not consciously. We interact with that river ecosystem. So how does this graduation solution that you have been applying actually deal with this pain? Maybe you can give us some examples of how it is in real life, how you see the impact is manifesting or coming out, being shown to the people getting involved as well.
So I'm going to start with some context.
Mm,
So we live at the upstream, and at the downstream, the state government has this massive program for river ecosystem restoration, and they do about 56 kilometers of the river from the coast to the inland. And we work closely with them through the Selangor Maritime Gateway, which is a wholly owned company of the state government. And they partnered with the Ocean Cleanup Interceptors to prevent marine plastic pollution. So in 2020, the Klang River was the world's second largest contributor to marine plastic pollution. Now, we're talking about one river in Malaysia, not all the rivers, just the Klang River, and it was terrible. I mean, small country like Malaysia, just one river being number two wasn't an enviable position to be in. We've now dropped, I think, four to sixth place because of all the efforts of the ocean cleanup and the Selangor government and various uh, community actors. So we said to the government, if you don't secure the upstream, then there's nothing's going to happen downstream. Because water flows right from a high elevation to a low elevation place, and we do have some challenges with the upstream, exactly where the river starts. So we said to them that some kind of focus needs to be put up here, and if we can secure the first 5 kilometers of the river, from its start point, which is at the foot of the dam, to the exit of the housing estate, and make it class one, and restore it, then it means that it can be done everywhere else, kilometer by kilometer, right?
Mm,
So it was to find out what were the challenges, and what are the answers or solutions, right? So no one going in, no one knew what it was going to be, right?
yeah.
But it's an interesting feature of water that at source or at its origin, just water H2O is always pure, and the moment it interacts with humans, it becomes sullied. Which is, I think the word sullied comes from, from sully, right? It's like when you brush your teeth in the water, you're not going to use like, your siblings say, okay, I'm done. Here's my gargle water, your turn, and then and pass it on, right? Like in the old days, people used to share a bath, and the last one had the mankiest water. So water is once it's used, it becomes sully, but yet it has this amazing ability to renew itself with no human intervention. If it sits right and in balance in the ecosystem, right? So the way to protect water, like to restore, rehabilitate a river, is funnily enough to do something negative. Don't don't pollute it, right? It's amazing, right? It's such a simple thing. If you don't pollute it, there's nothing to clean. There's nothing to restore. There's nothing to rehabilitate. There's nothing to rejuvenate. The river knows what to do and how to do, and it has known what to do and how to do for more than 2 billion years. We can't be smarter than it. It's been doing that for that long. In fact, the oldest living river, as I know it, is the Larapinta in Australia, which is estimated to be about between 350 and 450 million years old. This river is estimated to be 200 million years old. Now, think about us in the time frame. We show up for, in 100 years, we've managed to undo everything, right? So, um, when we do this, we want to give people an experience that one, it is possible to restore rivers. Two, it is possible to restore rivers without the government. Three, it's possible to restore the rivers without academia. And it's possible to restore the rivers without public funding. And it's possible to restore the rivers by yourself. It doesn't exist anywhere else in Malaysia. So this possibility that one person, two people, uh, a group of people can actually have the means and the ability to secure their local water source, right? But it can't happen overnight. But we've done more in 8 years than everyone else put together in the entire country since 1985. Which is the time I remember, the first time I remember seeing this campaign, Love Your Rivers, or in Malay, Sayangi Sungai Kita. Everybody's trying. I have no idea how many hundreds of millions of ringgit or how many billions of ringgit has been spent, but I'm going to say that until I showed up together with my friends, the people who do this, uh, no one has succeeded.
So
And
what makes it
suddenly,
different? What makes it different?
uh, good question. So I think it's because I was angry, right? So we have this national character, which is apathy. Malaysia is known for its apathy, but also the other extreme that we're extremely caring. So there's selectively apathetic and selectively caring, right? But for the most, the issue of commons, we're very apathetic. And the opposite of apathy uh, is anger. I was angry because this place that I grew up in, this river that I had a relationship since I was six, suddenly, and I say suddenly because there was a period where I didn't visit the river, changed. So it happened right under my nose, right under my eyes, and I said, how could people allow this?
Mm,
Whether it was the town planners or the local government, or how could they allow damage to something so beautiful, something that I took for granted as a child? I
mm,
thought it would always be there. It would always be like this. Nobody would disturb it. It would always be clean, always be beautiful. And then one day I went and I said, no, it's not. So at first it was shock, and then it was anger that what happened to the river happened because this housing estate that I live in, uh, from a 400 house place to now I think 5,000 house, units, and I haven't even counted the condos and stuff. We're the ones who caused this damage, and we're not even aware that we caused this damage, and we're continuing to damage it. So the apathy, the ignorance, the willful ignorance, it bothered me a lot,
mm,
And I said, I can't. I want to live in a place where it's beautiful. So I can't change the world, but I can change my world. The world I live in, the world I operate in. But it required me and my friends, who are also like me, who have lived here a long time, to take the bull by the horns, to take it on. So we never asked for permission. We just started. And then after a year, we told the government that, hey, we're doing something. Why don't you come and have a look? We're hosting this little festival to celebrate our 52 weeks of continuous, unbroken Gotong Royong education by action. And so they showed up at this festival, the first iteration of the Little River Festival in 2019, and they asked us, "Wow, you guys did this?" I said, "Yeah." Even though it was only about 1 kilometer in total, out of the 5 kilometers. And I said, "Yes, we did it." And they said, well, "How much did you spend? Like 400,000 ringgit, 500,000 ringgit?" And he said, 400. Oh, where did you get the money? I said, our own money. Huh? You put in 400,000 ringgit? I said, no, no. Between us, we pooled 400 ringgit, and the rest was sweat equity and, sweat expenditure, and a plan. So we had a plan, and that's what transformed this. And that prompted the head of the State Water Regulatory Authority at that time to say, so we've been trying all this time and we failed. We have all these experts and we couldn't do it. And here you are, this group of people who are not even a registered entity. They just call themselves Friends of Sungai Klang, you know. And they did it. And they don't care about being a registered entity. So what should we do? What we should do is we should form an umbrella body to recognize these community actors so that it gives them some authority to be the local stakeholders that are doing river ecosystem restoration. And so they formed, it's a very visionary government officer formed this thing called Friends of River Slang, and he recognized us. And then they went on to invest money in mapping what we did and creating a river care roadmap, which we were huge contributors to. Because the other thing was that we happen to have in our group lots of retired government experts and and me, who could put a lot of different people and things and information and ideas together and see the big picture and see how all the small parts work together. And so that's when I wrote this program called River 3 River CPR program, CPR being short for conservation, protection, and the R could be restoration, rehabilitation, or rejuvenation, and the idea of CPRing the river, um, and so that's how this River 3 program was born. And then I said, so we can't just show up every week to pick up rubbish. It's not a motivation for anyone.
mm,
So we should have some kind of end goal, and people like belonging to a place. People like creating something, being part of creating something. And at that time, I was really interested in the Sustainable Development Goals. I had started an eco-friendly business in 2015, so I was really invested in it. And I said we should be informed by the Sustainable Development Goals. Everything that we do should be informed by it. We would create a place. So the idea of uh, creating a citizen-built and designed and co-owned river park based on the SDGs. So that was the placemaking aspect. And then the SDGs about how water is central to everything. So there are two SDGs that are really, really powerful. One is SDG 17, Partnership for the Goals, because as much as I'm the front person, there is a band, and I'm not the only person. And so partnerships are very important. And the other one is water. Water is at the heart of everything else. You can't have zero hunger without water. You cannot have ending poverty without water. You can't have good health without water. You can't have education without water. You can't have gender equality. And people say, "Oh, well, what's the connection?" And I tell them this story, but ask me about it another time, right? And so that's experiential engagement of people that didn't used to come to the river, but because the River Tree program also has this other three parts, which was the building of amenities, communities, and an economy. So the economy part was that we have value, and cash isn't throwing good money after bad isn't the solution, but trading value in an ecosystem that will sustain this work that we're doing because we chose to be a no money model. And by being a no money model, what I meant was if we've thrown so much money at it for since 1985, and then the whole River of Life project, which was like 4.5 billion, 3.6 billion, some ridiculous number, and still didn't achieve what it set out to do. And that's not me saying it. I have kind of memorized this line. It's not me saying it. It's the Auditor General, and you can read the report from 2015 onwards, right? And you have this community group that could do this. And water is so critical to everything that when the economy is not good, when the stock market is bad, when the currency tanks, you're going to need water even more to survive and to be resilient and to fix things and to come back and to thrive. So you cannot hold water to ransom and say, oh, I have no money, therefore I'm not going to do anything about the rivers. That is suicide, right? So we had to figure out a way to do this without money. Um, and, uh, and also because we wanted to prove a point, because we actually inherited this from an earlier government incentivized NGO. They were part of the River of Life project. They were the ones, and most of them were my friends who, like me, grew up in this place, who said I should come and do something here instead of doing stuff outside. At that time, I had an interest in marine conservation. And so when we came, a group of us came, um, um, including Haji Mansour, who was the former district engineer of this place, who also grew up here, Dr. Salma, who was the former director of National Hydrological Institute of Malaysia, Prof. Zainal, who was a fellow of the Academy of Sciences. Everybody lives around this area. And we came and we worked with them together. And we said, you can't stop once you start, right? So it's got to be every week. And it's got to be consistent. It's got to be the same time. Um, but there has to be an end goal. And nobody knew what the end goal was until I said, well, let's build a park, as a way of conservation because it's place based and people resonate with spaces. People resonate with the place, their home, their office, their playground, their favorite coffee shop, their favorite travel destination. So if we could create this emotional attachment to the river through a park that's publicly accessible, and also I think a good 80% of the population would not know what this place used to be. It
Mm.
used to be paradise, right? So to restore it to as close to its original condition, in terms of the the biodiversity and also the topography. There's some things that you can't change anymore, so you have to live with that. And then to make it accessible, so we're building inclusive trails, and we've set this challenge for us that we know we've done it if a person can navigate the entire 5 kilometers in a wheelchair by themselves, right?
Wow, that's
So
quite a challenge, especially when you're talking about riverine sort of banks that have already mainly been concretized. They're very high and
yeah,
steep, and generally they are. I mean, as a child, looking at many various rivers, most of the time I wouldn't recognize it as a river because there's just even barriers even set up to prevent you from even going near it sometimes.
yeah. You haven't been here. Here, the river is still wide, and there's still natural banks, and there's still a green corridor, you know. But yes, if it's not impossible, why bother?
Yeah.
You know, that's the madness that lives in my head. And so by doing all this and saying, I'm not going to build it so you can enjoy it. You want it, you come and build it.
Mm.
So inviting participation as a challenge. You created this mess. You don't know? Come, I show you. Let me open your eyes. Let me, show you what impact you have. And most people don't know. They don't know that they have this impact. And so this thing when you said self awakening, self awareness, uh, sounds very elevated Buddha status. I wouldn't go that far,
Very
although
fluffy. To some people, it's
no,
like fluffy.
but it is. If you are unaware, right? You said earlier, unconsciously, and we know that um, the world is shaped by what we don't bring into the light, right? If you know Carl Jung, so whatever is repressed comes out in every way. If you look at even our economic systems that cause all this, all of it is, things that are the darkness that is still living in the darkness has not been brought into light. So there is a spiritual and there's a psychological thing level behind it. And then when people come face to face and say, "Oh, this guy is a river champion," and he will tell you that he is also a polluter, and then people feel like, okay, I can't be that bad, you know. And so these are the first steps of awakening, right? And once people get emotionally invested, and that's the kind of thing that you want to awaken in people, right? Their relationship with the place, because we're not floating out in space, right? We're not like the Bajau people, for example, who are a seafaring nation. And that, again, we can talk about that. That's another topic that really fascinates me. How land-based people disenfranchised an entire nation of seafaring people. So this is the whole thing about River Tree, right? It's about when people say, "How do you reach people?" And I say, "You see these trails that we're building? It's it's a way for me to build access into your mind, into your psyche. So when I put you on the trail and you're walking the trail, I'm walking into your head because you suddenly realize that, oh wow, this river has been here for 200 million years, and the mind starts to melt because people can't fathom time. And look at the water. Wow, it's so beautiful. Hey, look, there's fish there. Hey, look, there's a bird. And all this looks after itself. Because people say, what do you do? Well, we pick up bits of loose, stray trash, and we remove plants that don't belong, and we plant things that should be there, and we monitor and observe who else lives here. When I say who else, I mean the flora and the fauna, and then the sense of peace, because maybe 50 meters this way, 10 meters that way is the urban world, but here it's like a haven. You remove from all that, the air is clean, you reconnect with nature, and it's all intangibles, right? It's all intangibles until you take away the park. And then they realize what they've lost. So the idea is to get as many people to realize what they have so that they can protect it from being lost.
Mm,
So
and
it's
this is
very
where that
psychological.
and that's where the whole no money sort of model would work, because once someone is invested emotionally and has experienced that place, and sometimes it is beyond rational decisions in
Yeah,
terms of, is there the money, is there the incentive, is there the reward there? But it's that sense of fulfillment of actually being within that place that keeps drawing people to want to maintain that place, and want to put in the efforts to see um, it it go better and better. I guess there's almost like a metaphor even to your own house, right? I mean, the concept of house in the past is a physical building per se, but newer generations come on board, there's a lot more in terms of how quickly these things change. The concept of even the house itself is not so much the physical infrastructure per se, but it's in terms of how you maintain the atmosphere of being in your home. And as you get invested in that place that you are and anchor that feeling of home, then you would have put in more effort willingly, without external incentives or punishment, to actually pursue that feeling of a comfortable, warm, welcoming home that you can always come back to. And I love how, that placemaking perspective of it is really anchored in that experience of the natural world. Because very often, I think when people talk about the like conservation or talk about environmental goals, or being a champion for sustainability and things like that, it almost feels almost detached from your actual life, when what you're saying here is that it is actually your life. Even money
yeah,
itself, when you said you can't hold it at the river at ransom, even money itself is just the very useful tool that allows you to live an experience of life that you have. But if we cannot tap first into that experience of life, then everything is a reason to stop.
yeah. It's funny because we are right next to the forest. You know, one foot in the forest, one foot out. This area where I live in, these huge hills that are part of a geopark. We're aiming to become a UNESCO geopark, and then it connects to the Central Forest Spine. And there's a waterfall, and there's another smaller river, uh, and lots of little streams. So in my free time, I go mapping, to find where all the water sources are that are flowing into the river. And I know that if we have water disruption, we actually still have access to clean water
Mm,
from these sources, right? So trying to get the government to understand this and to feature it in the community, that this is why you must protect it, because if we have water disruptions, we still have water. We don't have to wait for a water truck. And I'm trying to convince them to set up a water distribution system that we can deploy if there are water shortages, okay? Because we can take directly from the waterfall, directly from the stream, and it's clear, clean, amazing water, right? And all you have to do is just boil it and you can drink it. And also to encourage people to install rainwater harvesting systems, because that's how I grew up. We didn't have pipe water in Kuala Lumpur, so on the zinc roof you would have all this pipes or whatever going into a tempayan, like a earthen
earn pot.
pot, and we had water from a well. So the only thing that we did was take water from a public tap, boil it for drinking. But everything else was water around us, and that's how resilient we were. And we can still be that resilient even though we've urbanized so much, because we get so much rainfall. I mean, I could fill up 1 meter cube tank, 1,000 liters of water in just 2 hours of rain.
Mm, mm.
And that's what we
And
deploy at the river, for keeping our nursery and plants water. It's just rainwater. And
mm.
so we can develop water resilience within our local community, but only if we are aware, only if we know. The knowing part is easy because we can teach, but the awareness part, why it's important for us to protect all of this to guarantee our water security.
And I'd like to throw in one more as well, because awareness without then having an outlet that is constructive is for me, I think is just as bad because then it leads to just a lot of anger built up. And not having that place to release it can be very destructive. As you mentioned, the various types of conflicts or wars that we see in the world today. For me, it is a
And it can
certain
also create
level
a lot
of
of anxiety.
yeah, that's it builds anxiety, as you say. Yeah, that's very true. So therefore, as we create awareness to pair it then to have a constructive outlet for that awareness to um make you feel empowered that you can actually change the realities that you live in, no matter how small it is. And these very small butterfly effects start happening, it ripples through, and you start seeing changes that you never experienced possible or thought possible, actually becoming a reality. Yeah, that's really, really interesting shift in how, awareness programs of the day to now, pairing it with that experiential, pairing with that next step of being able to empower action, I think is something that is very much needed. But of course, there's also one side topic, I just hope like maybe you can shed a bit of light because for people who are already invested, who have that emotional attachment, and then to see others not have that self-awakening can be something that burns people out um, quite quickly as well, where you feel like maybe you've opened the next door and you're inviting people to come through the room, and yet there's almost like some sort of stubborn um unwillingness to step into the room. So how do you and your team actually deal with those nagging situations that can lead to burnout?
Um, you have to accept that you will burn out because we're compressing the work of 1,000 generations into 12 years. This this is not enough time,
Mm,
and that's why we gave ourselves 12 years to do this. We said at the end of the 12 years, which is on the 24th of September 2030, both my co-founder and I will drop everything and walk away. Whatever happens, we're done. We've been 12 years for our lives every Saturday and Sunday, and almost every other day. For me, it's almost every other day because I live here. It's so easy to go and look, and it's what I do. I went this afternoon because we're doing this little terrace garden project at one of the corners of the trail uh, eh, to see how it's going to function so that we can do it for the entire section of that trail to create this pollinator garden that we're trying to build. So I spend a lot of time. It helps that I run my own business, so I have that freedom of time. But it doesn't mean I waste all of my time. I still have to work and still have to generate income and pay the bills because that is a purely voluntary thing that we do. And it's like a second or a third job. Yeah, it's a third job. And we don't have to open the door because it's a park. It's open, so there's this feeling of space. And a lot of people go there, and a lot of bad actors, together with government, are trying to take over some of the spaces because they see like, wow, it looks so nice, it looks so beautiful. We open a business, and for me, it's like get rid of all the humans, and you're there only as a visitor, a temporary visitor, right? No coffee shops, no business, no this. And so this is, this last couple of years, we've had this challenge with that. And most people know that it's there. And people randomly drop by, people come. We have to be very conscious about not being judgmental. Oh, look at me, I'm so sanctimonious and self-righteous, and I am. You just don't know it. Uh, but to say that, we ourselves, if you live in the plastic economy, you're a polluter, directly or indirectly. There's no escaping it. And so what can you do? Right? So the worst thing is not the anger, it's the feeling of hopelessness and helplessness. and uh, to tell people that to change the world, you only need to change yourself, and then you multiply that by whatever number of population, right? So I started with myself with the aim of becoming zero waste. So 6 years down, my monthly waste is 3 kilos. You know, the average Malaysian generates 1.17 kilos of waste daily. So well, that's a big thing, right? But I'm not satisfied. I want to get to zero. And so I changed things about myself. In 6 years, 7 years, coming to 8 years this July. Uh, but yeah, so now I can talk about it, right? This is what I did, right? It may not be what you do, but this is what I did. And I try to keep my water bill to 6 ringgit a month. And for years, I used to not pay water bill because the first 6 ringgit was free. The government paid for it, you know. And now that I have two other people, rescue dogs living with me, so it goes up to like 657, but that's, within the what should be for an average person. So that's pretty good already. And I'm constantly looking for ways to reduce and reuse water. So installing a rainwater harvesting system at my house, and then making sure that my dog pee gets washed into this little garden that I have outside that is exploding because it's getting so much nutrition, from dog poo and dog pee, to composting all my food waste, to reducing driving up and down, everywhere all the time. So all these little things that we can do ourselves to change our lives, and that's all that needs doing. Like if
And
you
you're
did
not
that,
doing it to 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 so-called prove or convince other people to do it. You're just
yes,
doing it for your own life, right?
yes, yes, and then you become an example, and people say, "Oh, it is possible." People call me, "You're so auntie." I carry this bag with Tupperware and container and all that stuff, so that I don't have to take more packaging, right? And it's become a habit. People know. I carry this. I don't know whether you can see it. Can you see this? No, there. Yes. So I carry this, and this is my Thai side. Ikat topi when you buy drinks in Malaysia, they tie it to like a straw. 4 years now, and I have one packed drink a day. So that's 4 years, 1,200 plus packaging that I have not used because of this. And people always look and say, "Wow, you really do it." Every time I see you have this, right? And I said, "Yes, it saves me money and it reduces my impact on the environment." And all the shops know, right? Because I don't need a straw for this. I don't need a straw. It's so all the shops know. If I put it, they know what I want. If I don't say anything, you know exactly what I'm ordering, and there's no straw. So this is for me. My thing. I'm not going to judge you. Right? You have to figure out what works for you, right? But
Mm,
you can look around at the examples that me and other people set and choose one that works and try until you find something. And if you choose to remain ignorant, and if you don't want to be an activist, and you don't want to vote and push the government to change economic systems, transition to cleaner energy and stuff, then you are the problem. Don't blame anybody else because we're all going to die this way or that way. So
mm,
face your mortality, but then look at the damage you do while you're alive, but you cost other people. And I'm not saying I'd go there and save the world, be Superman, but you can change your world. You can be
mm,
conscious of the impact that you do, and there's no judgment. I'm not going to say, I go out, people say, wow, you're environmentalist, so you sit with people who drinks, who still use straw and whatever. I said, yeah, that's them. I'm not going
mm,
to judge their life, you know. They
mm,
have to come to their own realization about it.
mm,
And if
mm,
you don't, you don't. That's just the way it is.
mm, mm. It feels that like through the experience of, placemaking, the experience of being empowered to change something, the burnout, um, if you assume that you'll never burn out, it's probably definitely gonna hit you pretty soon. So there's that sort of acceptance that actually there's a lot of things actually beyond your control. And yet you do what you do because that's just how you want to have a better experience of life. And in that process, also allow life to recover itself. So therefore, it's not so much about like trying to run away from burnout. It's not so much about judging other people for not following your path, but it is about that self-awakening even at a deeper level. Say that what is that experience of a good life, and how does enabling wider life to continue existing in my vicinity be able to help me have that experience, and therefore regardless of whether people follow or don't follow, I focus on what I can do within my own sphere, my own life, within my own vicinity. Um, and that actually would give you that type of peace that would allow burnout to not crop its head so quickly, because there's that almost a gentle acceptance that there's just going to be a certain rhythm of things. There are going to be differences among people. There are going to be different timings that people reach a level of awakening or awareness, or even take action, and that's okay as well. Mm, mm.
Um, may I speak a little bit more about burnout?
Sure, go ahead.
Yeah, so we burn out all the time. We push ourselves to our limit. My colleague and I, and we don't do well not doing anything because there's
Mm,
so much to do. Like I said, 1,000 generations into 12 years. And there's always this little, are you doing enough? You should go and do this. And sometimes my colleague will say, enough with the picking up of rubbish. And I said, no, I'm OCD. I like to know that when I left this place, I didn't see any fugitive litter, right? And I'm quite thorough, so I feel happy when I go away. And it doesn't matter like 1 second after somebody comes and dumps, that's for tomorrow. But today, here, now, I motivate myself with this, right? And we know that, it's a thankless task. It's an uphill battle. It's like Sisyphus, pushing the boulder all the way up and down, up and down, up and down. But we're committed to it, right? And so there's a lot of pain, physical pain, because you exert yourself physically, you carry heavy physical loads. But that's for us. That's for me and my colleague. We spend lots of time in the sun. We don't get sunburned, bitten by mosquitoes. I gave myself a black eye in January doing something, and I'm still waiting to recover. Right? There's no pain or whatever. It's just that black eye is still there. And there's the emotional challenge, of dealing with government and uncooperative people and bad actors and all those stresses, right? But there's another part of me that knows that I'm playing a game, right? Because we're all gonna die, and in the end, nature will win. You know,
I would say nature didn't
oh
even
my
play
God.
the game with us, playing
Yeah,
against
so,
ourselves.
yeah. And so everything will be all right in the end. Here now, you have to be like that person uh, uh, in that poem. Do not go silently into the night. Rail against the dying of the light. You have to live life in all of its extremes. You have to feel it. You know, but then you also have to know that that was the stage show. Now you can step back and be uh, in the knowledge that it will all be all right in the end. And if it isn't, it doesn't matter. You'll be dead. It's not your problem anymore, right? And that's what we tell ourselves, right? We do this now. We do this. We invest ourselves. This is life, right? It's not doing something. It's being something, you know. And if you die, you die. It's no longer my problem. I can drop all of it. And I got this sense when my dad passed away last year, very very peacefully, and he lived a full life. So I'm coming from a generation of people who live very full lives, all their lives. And when you can live well enough alone, you don't you go and poke the bear. It's like, hey, there must be something else. And then when it's time to go, you go. and there's no baggage, there's no burden, there's peace, and that's the life you want to live. And the thing about being human is that it's only here now. Because as soon
mm,
as you're dead, you're not human anymore. You
mm,
just matter and you don't matter. You just matter and you don't matter anymore, you know? And so there's this kind of Jekyll and Hyde, two extremes thing. And it's this thing that, it has helped us to come to terms with a lot of the things. But you can only say this if you're willing to be vulnerable, if you're
mm,
willing to open yourself and feel everything, all the anger, all the joy, all the hate, all the sanctimony, all the self righteousness, all the judgmental, all the generosity, all the compassion, all of that. Then you can say, I've lived and I can go peacefully. You have to be like the river. The river doesn't say, hey, wait, let me put on a raincoat, then you can rain. No, the river is. There's always this eternal now that the river, here and now. It's raining, it's dry, it's low flow, it's flooding. It's always now.
mm.
And it's always this flow. It's always this flow. That
Yeah.
there isn't a past, there isn't a future. It's always now here. And so it's this is spiritual connection or expression or understanding that the river teaches. Because when it's gone, it's gone, and what is to come will come. And
Mm,
your job is to be here now and deal with it
mm,
here now, because you can
mm,
only be at one place at one time.
mm, mm.
So yeah, so
And
it's
I think
this
that
thing
does
that
bring a certain peace, that you realize that, all that actually really matters is right here, right now. And that in this moment, you always have a choice of who you are being. And that speaks of volumes in terms of how you would live your own life. And the people who find inspiration from you will be able to draw from that, and continue their own journeys as well. So on that note, Kennedy, maybe I want to ask, like, what is the vision for the future in relation to the work that you're doing with giving people these experiences through doing, to through placemaking, to create that protection over the raw water resources that we have. If you had a magic wand, what would you most want to see in the coming few years?
well, one we have this stated mission, to build this park, and the park has features and has characteristics about it, that it's not a commercial place, it's a restored site, it's an education site, and all that stuff, and it's co-managed between government, between civil society and government, or community and government, and to say to people, you can have ownership in this venture. Uh, you have to show up. So your equity is by showing up, right? You show up, you volunteer, you put your money where your mouth is, you do the work and whatever, right? And so you have this equity. And then to have it gazetted as a protected area that fits into a larger context. So there's layers and layers of stuff in terms of the place and the topography and the dynamics of the geography of that place and the economy of that place, which has all been mapped out already. And so we're waiting for buy-in from the government to do this. There are actors who want to take over, and they may succeed. And if they do, then nothing I can do about it. I've given it my best. If the rest of the community doesn't care, then why should I care?
Mm,
I did it, right? But then the vision, the hope is that we succeed, right? We succeed, and then suddenly everybody has no more excuse to not do. You can't say, "Oh, it's the government's job," because no, the truth is, it's not. It's not the government's job to make a better world. It's your job, because the mess was created by you. It's not the government dumping crap into the river. Yeah, they have a part in it, but it's you. Your kitchen sink water is the one that goes into the drain. Your garbage unmanaged is what gets into the river system, and in your lifestyle that is so carbon intensive, that's causing all this crap. So it's on you, and you can only do what you can do, and that's all you're expected to do, right? So if you do it, then it means that government has no more excuse. And we always say 100% of all the problems we have is caused by the government. And that's true because they're vested with my power and my money. The other 100% is my fault because nobody stuck a gun to my head and say pollute the river, throw
Mm,
rubbish everywhere, right? That's on me, right? So it's equality of blame, but it's also equality of solution,
mm,
right? And and we would probably be one of the first countries in the world to have this kind of model. And now you have an answer how to restore rivers without spending money, you know.
yep.
And we plan to write a book. My colleague and I are thinking about, you know, doing our PhD, and we do that. And here's my thesis, and it's the book, and it's the answer. And bye, I'm leaving. Because yes, you know, 12 years, it's a long time, you know, and there are things that I want to do. I will be 59 when we finish, you know, 1 year to 60. And I want, if I live that long, I want some time to do my own thing,
Mm,
right? But here will be, and it's not just a legacy, you know, we don't want legacy. Um, it's this thing about what is possible. So when you're standing in this place that everybody said was impossible, then you have no more exclusion, no more limitation to say, no, no, I can't do it, it's impossible. Look, you're standing in what you said is impossible.
mm, mm,
You know? And
yeah.
this hopefully energizes people and give people this idea
Hope.
of two things, right?
Mm,
Hope is one, but as a citizen, you have three roles. It's not just your right. Oh, I have a right to this. I'm a citizen. I pay taxes. But you also have a role and responsibility.
mm,
This triumvirate is what gives you that citizenship. If you only claim for your rights, then you're not, you know, you're no different from an animal who says, I'm hungry, I will kill you and eat you. Because it's driven by impulse. And we're very impulsive, but we have a rational mind. You know, I believe, right, that we are a great experiment of nature. And if you look throughout the history of the planet, nature's always tinkering, tinker, you know, this works, that works, and somehow it gets spread across species. The majority of us have eyes either in front or at the side. We have ears, we have a sense of smell, we have a mouth. All the creatures above water, below water, you know, the same matrix, right? For
mm,
life, for biological life. And then there are a few exceptions. Um, and the ones that don't work, nature gets rid of, right? Now we start thinking about nature in terms of the biosphere, planet, but actually we're cosmological beings. Take the moon away and we're screwed, you know? And I have a great interest in physics, astrophysics especially, and about how the electromagnetic fields of all the planets and the mass of all the planets and the gravity of all the planets and the orbits uh, affect life on Earth. We are, you know, we're solar powered. Have you ever thought about it like that? Because even if you eat meat, the animal that you ate the grass and the leaf, and that's entirely solar powered, right? We learn about photosynthesis in school, but if you really get into the microphysics of photosynthesis, you would just be blown away at how we are actually solar powered creatures. And in all of that, uh, nature has produced a species. So we are in the tree of life, not at the top, but we are part of the great apes, right? So bonobos, chimpanzees, orangutans, gorillas, and us. And I was listening to a talk yesterday about how we're the only ones who developed arch feet,
mm,
right? Because arch feet is required for bipedalism, to stand upright and walk, right? And this trait took 2 million years from Homo erectus, the first time we stood upright and walked, you know, and it evolved. And the complex things that goes into walking is mind blowing. But nature worked it out. right? And we're the first ones who can describe nature. So we
Conceptualize it.
develop language for it, we can put it outside ourselves, we can manipulate it. And so we're the great experiment. And if we fail, nature does what it always does, wipe it out and start all over again. Because
Mm,
time means nothing to nature. Countless species have been wiped out who couldn't adapt, who couldn't thrive. She will just stop evolving us, turn on mutations, and we'll be gone. Nature, we think of her as Mother Nature, but she can be very brutal,
mm,
you know. And if we don't wake up to the fact that we have this role, then say, okay, we tried this, failed, start again.
yeah, yeah,
That's what should we do, you know. So
yeah.
we are the consciousness of nature. And as far as we know, we're the only species in the entire universe that can apprehend this cosmology in which we exist.
Mm,
There was a thing. So what's the most valuable element in the universe? Gold, diamond,
I'm
wood.
conscious. Mm,
Wood
mm,
exists nowhere else in the entire universe that we know of. Scientists have found diamond, gold, silver, every valuable thing. But wood only exists on Earth,
mm. Right.
right?
Yeah.
And so we're not cognizant of what nature has given us.
Okay. So on that note, thank you very much, Kennedy, for sharing that. I think it really shifts perspective in terms of all this pursuit that various people have, regardless of whether it is the pursuit of money or if it's the pursuit of something for your daily use, or it's the pursuit of peace or happiness, or the pursuit of avoiding unhappiness or conflict or things that you don't want. Um, that, in the greater scheme of things, if we've reconnected back to this consciousness um, that is wider than ourselves, um, it almost feels that there's a certain type of peace that naturally will come. But as you said, the caveat is, are you willing to actually open yourself to that type of vulnerability in order to tap in with yourself and allow yourself to then connect with that wider consciousness. And when you do allow that humanness of yourself to actually come through, then a lot of the various sort of actions that we're pursuing can be pursued in a very different way. And it doesn't have to be something that is burdened with the caveat of money, the caveat of time, the caveat of approval by various people to move ahead, and to actually draw into that goodness that naturally emerges in your willingness to experience life uh, in all its forms and functions. So, how would someone connect with you, Kennedy, if they wanted to actually support you in the work that you do, or perhaps eventually get the book that you're willing to write? Probably even replicate it to their own communities so that you can actually conserve, restore a river without the money. How would they connect to you?
You can send me an email at kennedy at river3.org, or they can WhatsApp me at +601232222918. That's +601232222918. Or they can go to our socials, Linktree at River3, and they'll find all kinds of ways to connect with us.
Right. Thank you very much, Kennedy, for your time and also this very interesting conversation. I hope you had an enjoyable session with us as well. And all the best.
Yeah.
Yeah, all the best with the projects that you're doing. Until then, thanks everyone for listening in to this episode of Circular Insights. I'll see you next time. Thank you. Goodbye.